Hi folks, Dan the Wolfman here. My little brother, my little famous brother, little short shorts wearing J. Jonathan Reeves, thinks he's going to dunk on, I just lost it because I looked at his video on X, dunking on boomers. Because the FBI finally settled the debate between 9mm versus 40 versus 45. Thinks he's a big shot just because he goes and talks to Mr. FBI guy. I thought we were done with this, but apparently he didn't like my 40 doesn't suck video. 10 reasons 40 is awesome, and 40 doesn't suck, but you do, Twig Arms videos. And I proved it. I proved it with 4 pistols, subcompact pistols, and a little lightweight revolver shooting full bore 40. Okay? Like making good critical anatomical hits. Good shooters can do that. 9mm was picked because it's for the lowest denominator of, and even he said the word secretaries. Okay? Let's not get it twisted. Mr. FBI, former ballistician, former hunter turned ballistician with the FBI, did not say that on a projectile versus projectile basis, 9mm is better or does more damage. He can't say that because it is not true. I'm not saying don't go with 9mm. I'm saying departments switch to 9mm, that the FBI switched to 9mm because it is to the lowest denominator of employees. I think some of us understand what part of that means. Doesn't mean there's no wimpy male accountants either, okay? FBI guys are not, most of them were not former hunters and gun guys like they used to be when I was playing an FBI guy on that J. Edgar Hoover movie when Clint Eastwood literally picked me out of a crowd and put me in a hallway with Leonardo DiCaprio, that pedo. Man, this cough. And that other guy, tall guy that abused women. And these, you can look it up. Anyway, they're not the same as they used to be. They're not gun guys and they're accountants and they're, whatever. They're not all tactical dudes. Okay. 9mm isn't just as good. It doesn't beat 40 or 45, depending on what metrics we're looking at. Okay. Everything's a trade-off. But JJ, stop acting like you dunked on boomers. It's not better. It's easier for shitty shooters to make slightly better hits because of slightly less recoil. It's better for really shitty shooters, secretaries, and alphabet hires to make somewhat better scores on qualification than similar pistols in 40 caliber. Okay. This was especially true before Glock Gen 5. As I've said, they were merely barrel swap 9mm. They were not engineered to handle the recoil like HKs and SIG P229s literally were. USPs and eventually MNP 2.0s. The MNP pistols were engineered for 40. They handle it amazingly well. Check out my videos, even in a subcompact. Okay. They do not. I say this literally with body armor next to me, carrying 2 pistols with 78 rounds of ammunition. It would be nice if some people would go, yeah, maybe we should listen to those guys. I'm not saying don't pick 9mm. If you can perform at a much better level, making like 100% critical, anatomical critical structures in a 4x6 card with 9, and you can't do that in a 40, maybe it matters. I've done a 25 pistol study with different calibers from 380 all the way to 45 and 357 Magnum. Red dot versus iron sights. So at Christmas next year, you will find the results of an actual study with the same constant one shooter. Now, it wasn't the same day, but it's a pretty good study to say how much lower are you scoring with 40. Well, if you take the secretary or the alphabet hire, yes, they already can barely pass after retests with 9mm. I have been in certain classes with certain people. I'm on file with the state with 5 different pistols, including Glock 19 and Glock 17. I'm on file with the state being the only one in my group to score perfect 250 out of 250. Okay, leaving that there. So I do have a little bit of grounds to what I say. 9mm, it's cheaper. It's lighter to ship. And it's for the lowest denominator shooter. That does not mean you are not going to get him to lie, I hope, and say it's just as effective. Okay. Number one, we have the FBI in the past saying as long as it starts with a 4, Yuri Patrick. Read the paper by Yuri Patrick. Read all the previous stuff by Dr. Martin Fackler, the founder of, Terminal Ballistics, the Wound Ballistics Workshop, 87, 88. I have all the FBI data from 89 to, I think, 98 on various calibers that they were requested to the FBI by various police departments. I actually have that data and analyze that data. Okay. So if you don't know Fackler and you haven't read stuff by Gary Roberts, who maybe now says 9mm, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. And you haven't read Yuri Patrick, and you haven't read Schwartz, and you haven't read McPherson, and you don't talk fairly regularly with Chris Locke, the head ballistician at Federal, Spear, like I do. By the way, I said 180 grain 40 HST has always performed. When Chris Locke tells me that, I believe him. When he says it has always performed perfectly, always performed wonderfully in OIS, officer involved shootings. Patrick, as long as it starts with a 4, either 40 or 45. 40, 180 grain was because 10mm light, 180 grain. 10mm light, 180 grain at 950 feet per second, which is what 40 became. They kind of bumped it to 980. That loading was to simulate how good the 185 grain 45 load did through windshields and stuff like that. Why? Because retained momentum matters. Retained momentum. Because after going through a windshield or car steel body auto doors and stuff, it's about having a heavy enough nugget and a big enough to do a tissue crush to do a total wound volume, and heavy of a nugget especially to go deep enough to still get to an organ, say like he was, I had a shootout with cops and I was the driver. Okay. So it has to be able to get deep enough for LE. That's why LE and 9mm FBI is telling you 135 or 147. Isn't that interesting? That means 135 plus P critical duty. That means their special contract run, JJ Reeves, short wearing 147 grain hot. I don't know technically if plus P, but hotter than normal. Q number, government contract, 147 G2 gold dot. I do believe. And why don't you verify that for me? And in fact, since 2020, I bet you the FBI says either or is now an approved loading. And at one point, they had a poll, and you find that memo, JJ. Find that memo when they said no longer for use immediately in G26s. Why? Because guess what? Heavy for caliber rounds, especially if they're tougher rounds like critical duty or G2 with a plug, don't expand great from short G26s. Find the memo, says not to be used in Glock 26s. When you add in distance, like a 42-yard, then 40-yard mall shooting shots to stop a POS, when you add in distance or wintertime, many layers of clothing, often way more than 4, 8, 9, 10 layers of clothing in wintertime, the heavy loads from shorter barrels don't do so good. Now, HSTs are amazing. As long as it's 3.3 inch, it's probably okay. I really say, 4 inch or longer typically for the heavier rounds. But FBI had to pull those heavy for caliber rounds for usage immediately in the Glock 26. Now, maybe they got the manufacturer to kick it up an extra 30 feet per second. I think that was actually their solution. So they could say you could carry the same rounds even if off duty you carry a G26. My FBI friend carries the same Gen 5 G19M with AmeriGlow night sights. With JJ Reeves, about a year ago, he didn't get red dot. The class after him started getting red dots through recruits about a year and a half ago. Okay, so you can verify that. But you will not find it does more on a shot versus shot basis. If you don't know the mathematics involved, that it's radius squared to figure out total wound volume times the bullet profile, 0.82 for JHP. If you didn't know that, you don't understand handgun terminal ballistics. If you don't know the math to figure out total wound volume, volume of a cylinder, and that the FBI actually let some of that go in a magazine back in the late 80s from the wound ballistics workshop, and how it gave its average scores through all 8 tests, now 6. The guy kind of misspoke. Was 8 originally. They took 2 away. 6 tests now. So some people actually know this stuff. Not many, but at least I do. Pretty good anyway. So Spear, previously the reps, you can find the video, probably Lucky Gunner, where he said 40 projectiles are the best we can do. The best handgun, as good as it's going to get with handgun, through ranges and probably all the barriers of the 6 FBI tests, right? Through the wide variety of circumstances, through possibly having to shoot mostly through windshield and auto bodies, which are the hardest test, is the windshield test. You cannot get a better handgun projectile design probably than 165 or 180 gold dot, because the 165 penetrates really, really far in gold dot. Gold dot for law enforcement and for civilian use, and even law enforcement if you prefer bigger expansion. 165 or 180 grain HST, 180 grain has more lead spread, it gets bigger. If you don't understand that how diameter matters, because it's not just, the ER doctor said he can't tell the difference between a pinky and a middle finger. That's through the entire laser blast, through the entire wound path. It is radius squared. You have to understand math. So, HSTs are great. Let's say gold dot. A 9mm gold dot. I'm lucky if I get 53 to 56 expansion. Real world, maybe 58. I'd like HST in many cases better, except vehicles. This may be better for duty, and they're both better than critical duty. Talking about duty booty right there. But how about 180 grain gold dot? That's going to get, at least 0.10 bigger. You're like, well, that's not that much bigger. And then it's 0.5 because it's radius, but it's squared. It's through the entire wound path. So bigger tissue crush, bigger total wound volume, faster bleeding, faster loss of diastolic pressure, faster bad guys not good at killing you. And more importantly, and what they need to realize is LE should switch back to 40 because of all the reanimations and shootouts. That guy's a bullet sponge. He took 8 to 12 hits of 9mm. And not only did he then stop his initial attack, but then he got up to charge with a knife again. Or he bent over. And then he goes, oh shit, I'm going to die anyway. And he sucks it up mentally. And he goes, okay, dedicated attacker. And he's a bullet sponge. And he decides to keep shooting it out. With 40, they went down. Typically. I mean, yes, shot placement, of course, matters. Momentum to carry through the bone, through the arm matters. Very important videos you should look at. Paul Harrell, police pistols, 9mm versus 40. He reenacted the Miami-Dade side lateral shot through the arm. Okay? And he didn't eat critical duties. They're not the best rounds, especially in 40 critical. 135 plus P in some ways does actually beat the 40 critical duty. 40 critical duty is not very good. Okay, it doesn't expand very good. None of them expand good. I've ballistics tested 124 plus P versus 135 plus P critical duty, which duty protects your booty, in my modern meat target and my Paul Harrell tribute playlist. So watch the Paul Harrell police pistols 9mm versus 40. Momentum matters. Dr. Gary Roberts, who's now like, pick the best platform you shoot well with the most free ammo you can get. He's kind of jumped on that 9mm bandwagon, contradicting everything he said previously, repeating Fackler, diameter 45, 62% more tissue crush than 9mm, all facts. Okay, total wound volume. Also facts, HST, 230 grain HST, 2.12 times more than my most carried load of 124 plus P HST. It does over twice the amount of actual damage, and it's more likely to nick a vital structure, if it wasn't going to hit directly. So many of my shots on my anatomy targets are right next to the spine. You don't use FMJ that pushes tissue out of the way. You want the expanded diameter. Anyway, off track. Dr. Gary Roberts says 40 is still the best for dealing with vehicles. If your department does a lot of vehicle stops, if you're state police, like California Highway Patrol, switch from 357 to 40, you might want to stick with 40. 40 is by far the best when shooting in or out of vehicles, because you got a bigger, heavier nugget still going through. People then go, what about 45? It's even bigger. you haven't considered velocity and ogive. There are some downfalls in certain situations. If you don't know what ogive is, you don't know what the angle is, however you want to say ogive, then you don't know what you're talking about. 40 is the best law enforcement round there is. End of story. 40 is cyclical. It will make a comeback. JJ Reeves, you didn't dunk on your older brother or the rest of the boomers. Just because Twig Arms can't shoot, it's cheaper. Okay. Now, does it take a little less mental processing to make all A-zone hits with 9 than 40? Yes. How important is that? That's debatable. You can talk to Ben Stoker. Like he can still make all the hits. He just has to put a little more, make sure he's got a proper grip and all that, which he should be doing anyway. Okay, if you're not shooting 1,200 rounds a day, you should be doing anyway. So you're not going to hear them say better because momentum is going to go deeper after going through intermediate barriers. Always. It goes deeper anyway. You can look at Federal's old LE Vista sight. Now, the 9mm changed a bit. They ended a second counter lure, so it does go deeper and expands even less. But you can go on, VistaLE.com. I think it's still up, even though Vista's now been bought out. And you can go on, that gives the spear information. You can go to the spear side and get that information. Hornady still gives their information, even on the critical defense, not even going 12 inches in almost all the loads. By the way, in organic gel, heavy clothing organic gel is what matters to civilians. But 40 is going to go deeper. It's going to expand more. If it's only 78 instead of 68, or it's only 65 instead of 55, and often 53 or even less than the 1.5 times initial diameter expansion. With 9mm, a lot are only like 49, 50, 51. Even that 124 plus P critical duty, they say like 51, and it's more like 48. I've tested it. Look at my Paul Harrell tribute playlist. At least watch, it's the first video to learn. If you really want to learn about handgun terminal ballistics, look at Paul's video and then look at my video, because my video, what I came up with, a modern meat target, 9mm versus 40, I recreated his very first full meat target video. He did one with birdshot before that, but his first real, and he did 9 and 40 from subcompact pistols. I did the same. Okay. And I compared 2 old rounds from each and 2 newer tech rounds from each. You can see for yourself how diameter and momentum matters, especially if you go through bone, especially if you're LE that has more likely than a civilian to have to shoot through a windshield, through car doors, through the seat at an angle from back there, through the metal door, through the, everything, all the junk, and through there, and still get deep enough to stop my deadly actions from running you over. Those things kind of matter. So JJ Reeves, he told you a lot of truths, but don't skew. Don't skew. Is it easier for most people to make better hits or to at least qualify with 9mm over 40? Yeah. A lot of the reason was because Glocks were not engineered for 40 till Gen 5, and they're prototyping G22s. They're testing the G22 right now. The only one I would buy, look at my review of a non-Glock lover, I am interested in a Gen 6 G23. If, hopefully, the backstrap, because the backstrap doesn't go up all the way now, it's built in. I don't know if Rapid Engineering can change the presentation angle for me. Okay? But Glock's testing it, and the stupid bean counters, they're still plastic sights. They're going, how many departments really want to stick with 40? Well, guess what? Houston PD, who shoots a lot of dirtbags, I do believe, is still using 40. Why? Because they watch all the other police videos. They're like, we shoot guys 2 or 3 times, and they fucking go down. And then we see all the 9mm videos. Keep 9mm from 4.5-inch barrels with either 124 plus P gold dot, one of the best rounds, or 135 plus P gold dot, supposedly one of the best rounds, or critical duty. Supposedly they're using better rounds from longer barrels, and still guys are needing 7, 8, 9, double digit, 11, 12, oftentimes 6 to 7, bloop, and then reanimate. And with 40, 45, bigger bullets, they're usually not going to reanimate because they lost more blood quicker from the total wound volume or tissue crush. The weight of how much tissue was more that was disturbed and they don't reanimate. And that's what law enforcement needs to think about, and why 40 does deserve a comeback, at least for law enforcement. And you, winter shooting, and look at the ammo and stuff I sent Gun Sam, this heavy clothing test, that's also pretty telling stuff. Anyway, guys, like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the flip side.